Alright, so today I want to rank the FNAF games from easiest to hardest. This is going to have to be a little personal opinion thing because my skills on the game are obviously different from the next person's skills. I might be better at quick timing, but not as good at hearing, where other people might have super sharp hearing and they just don't have the reflexes. Here are the rules to my list. The games only have to be completed up to 5 nights. If you start to factor in the 6th, 7th, perhaps 8th nights, then the games get a little ridiculous, and it makes the leaderboard a lot harder to keep track of. I'm also not going to be including like true endings or anything like that, like the first 5 nights just have to be beaten, not with any specific guidelines. I'm not going to mention any bullshit games like Security Breach Fury's Rage, or the 5 Nights at Freddy's version of Sit and Stay. I mean, I'm already including FNAF AR on this list, so that's as good as it's probably going to get if you're into those smaller time games. So yeah, let's get started. The first game I put on this list is FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. Now immediately you might think, why? There's a lot of potential for this game to be really hard, right? But there's also a lot of potential for this game to be really easy. You can choose whatever you want for the night. If I was to factor in the challenge modes, then this game would probably be in the mid to top tier in difficulty, but since you just have to get to the end of one night to technically beat the game, I'm putting it first. Up next on the list is FNAF AR. Now this game, again like the last one, is very simple to technically beat. There's no real end in sight to these games. It's like Pokemon Go where you just want to collect more and more things, and that's why I'm putting it in second. The only thing you have to do is catch a guy, which is a little bit harder than just sitting and staying and doing nothing, so that's why it's above FNAF Ultimate Custom Night. Up next I have Pizzeria Simulator, because you can beat this game and get quite a few certificates without even having to deal with any animatronics in the building at all. Like I said with Ultimate Custom Night, if I went for the hardest endings, then this would be among the top hardest games, but because of the fact that you can get through the whole game without letting a single bad animatronic into your building and completing the game, it goes right here. Now FNAF 3 is when we start to get into the real FNAF games, the root of where the game started. And I say FNAF 3 because unlike most of the other FNAF games, you only had to really deal with one animatronic the whole time. Sure, you had phantoms who would pop out of nowhere and jump scare you, reset your systems, and make the night a little bit harder. But if you know which spots to avoid on the camera, then you didn't have to worry about it. And on top of that, if you were quick enough to get off the camera when they were on it, you wouldn't even be affected by it. The only animatronic you had to watch for was Springtrap, and honestly, until night 5, he's pretty easy to take care of. Now is where the real challenges start to come in, and I think the next one on the list should be FNAF Sister Location. This game is a little hard, but there are definitely some nights that are just a wash. Night 5 is pretty much a whole lot of nothing as long as you can take basic directions from Baby. Night 4 is the hardest night, and the other 3 nights are pretty decent. They each pose their own challenge, but by the time that you get used to them, you pretty much mastered them and don't have to worry too much about failing them. Whereas in FNAF 1, it's just scaling difficulty. 4 animatronics that get more and more aggressive each night as you keep playing. That's why I think FNAF 1 is a little bit harder than Sister Location. Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica all make for a really hard challenge to keep track of come night 5. If you're not constantly flipping between cameras, you'll get Foxy or Freddy to jump scare you, and if you're not monitoring the doors, then Chica or Bonnie will get a hold of you. I know I said no bullshit games, and in my opinion this one's not. This one's one of my favorite FNAF games, even though I'm gonna get hate for it. It's FNAF World. Now to get to the end of this game, it's very, very different from any other FNAF game, alright? You need to get a team built that is not only high level, but paired well with each other. It's a classic RPG, right? And to get to the end of this game requires a good amount of patience, time, and a little bit of skill. But it is one of the more rewarding FNAF games to finish, in my opinion at least. Regardless of all the bugs and the lack of sustenance that most FNAF fans wanted, it still really made a good impression on me, and I do think that it was pretty hard to beat. But the next game that I think is harder than FNAF World has to be FNAF 4. Night 5 on FNAF 4 alone is one of the most difficult nights, and you'd think it would be much easier since it only does have one animatronic patrolling the house, Nightmare Fredbear. So why is it so difficult? Why is it much harder than the one animatronic in FNAF 3? Well, they both operate on audio cues, but the thing is with Fredbear is he's quick and leaves almost no room for mistakes. If you go to one door and he goes to another, you can pretty much call that the end of your run. Not only that, but this game has such a creepy essence about it that you're naturally already anxious and scared about getting this level done. So the difficulty on top of it just makes it a whole lot harder. Now up next, I believe that FNAF Security Breach and Ruin are probably some of the hardest games in the series. I mean, it's a large game that requires a decent amount of skill, a good amount of bravery as you're going through the animatronic pizza place, right? And a definite good amount of patience. It took a very different route from most FNAF games, but in turn made a very good yet challenging game. But one game that I personally believe is tougher than Security Breach is FNAF 2. Now, Security Breach, yes, it is challenging, and it does take a while to get through, but I didn't find it nearly as challenging as I've found FNAF 2 my whole life. In fact, I don't even know if I've been able to beat Night 6 of FNAF 2. Every other FNAF game, I've been able to do Night 6 and maybe try a little bit of a custom night. But FNAF 2, I just can't get it. The animatronics are everywhere, and they're ruthless. Animatronics like the puppet keep you looking at the map the whole time regardless. Balloon Boy makes you have to look out for your vents. Foxy makes sure that you don't just wear the Freddy mask the whole time. And all the other animatronics make sure that you're not wasting your flashlight battery. It's a conglomeration of all the hardest, toughest parts of Five Nights at Freddy's. And that's why I believe it's the hardest FNAF game. But there's technically one that is harder. And that is Help Wanted. Because Help Wanted includes FNAF 1 to 4. So technically, if you want to beat this game, you have to beat all 5 nights of all 4 modes. Of course, there's the extra mini games where you can go ahead and fix all the animatronics and whatnot. But even to just complete the game at its bare minimum, requires 20 nights at Freddy's of some of the hardest games in the series. So of course, naturally, this one's going to be the hardest, right? It only makes sense. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making this one. I'll see you in the next one. Have a merch link in the bio if you want to check out some of the merch I have. Have a great day.